Friday.
Growing up in high school is never easy, especially being a male. Feels almost like a competition against one another. Which guy can be the toughest? Which guy has the biggest arms? There's no such thing as emotions being a guy. Having feelings for girls, they used to say. I'll say I was quite popular in high school, but not as popular as my other male friends. No, they had their way with the girls. They were the best at sport, more muscles, more charm. I was just a skinny white guy who got laughed at, the joker of the bunch. I was never bullied, nah. But I'd never stick up for myself. I hated myself for that. You never want to be that guy that can't be taken seriously. Nowadays, I never get walked over. I've even had people say they're intimidated by me. Guess I was fed up of being laughed at. I was determined to change. I had a few girlfriends as I was growing up, nothing too serious. But again, that was my own fault. The guys always told me I was a pushover. Apparently letting a girl off and do her own thing was asking for trouble. I've always been old-fashioned in a relationship. Kind of the way, I suppose. My mates didn't like that though. They used to laugh at me for opening doors, sending flowers and walking girls on. What was that phrase they used again? Treat them mean, keep them keen. At first it sounded silly to me, but it actually worked. I never believed it until I saw it with my own eyes. That's when everything started to change. That's when I met Lucy. I still don't know how this girl managed to get somebody so beautiful. Guys like me don't get women like her. She even began to think it herself at one point, which I must admit upset me a little. She was always telling me after she got back from work how other men used to chat her up. I even saw it happen with my own eyes a couple of times. Had to warn men off her. Only made me want me to become the bigger man, the better man. I didn't want her with anybody but me. I loved her. All I wanted was to make her smile. But it seemed as though I wasn't good enough. It wasn't long until that smile was wiped from her face. After a few years, our relationship was getting worse and worse. Didn't know how she put up with me for so long. I loved her too much to let her go. Couldn't let that happen. I wouldn't. I was so determined to make sure she understood where I was coming from. I begged her for forgiveness time after time. I wanted her to stay with me. I said and did things without thinking. I just couldn't help myself. But I was trying so hard to change. Of course, no one knew what we were going through. We seemed like the perfect happy couple, to family and friends. She got on with her parents incredibly well. I knew as soon as I met her family, I'd never be the number one man in her life. That was her father. I mean, it took quite some time for me to come to terms with it because Lucy's family wasn't what she made it out to be. Her dad was violent, especially towards her mum. Sure, you couldn't tell from how they were in the public eye. They looked perfect together. But she was still daddy's little girl, always. And I admit, this got to me. How a man that evil could just mean so much to her. I wanted to be her number one, not him. He wasn't deserving of that. If anything, her looking up to her father so much gave me all the determination I needed to prove to her I was the better man, the stronger man. She didn't need him in her life. I would show her. I was made to think that a bruise or two was the right way to go into teaching someone a lesson. After all, you're meant to have the utmost respect for your partner, not make them feel like a fool. First, there wasn't any violence. Honestly, just a bit of name calling. Just came out without thinking. It was just harmless, sticks and stones and all that. But gradually it got worse. Slapping, shoving, spitting. I couldn't apologise enough. I knew I was wrong. I knew this was all my doing. She kept telling me how I needed to stop. I needed to change. You're pathetic. You're weak, she screamed. No one wants to see their woman they love so choked up that you can hear the pain in her voice. It was all my fault. That's all she kept telling me. I was the reason she did this. Yeah. She did it. Took me 5 years to bring myself to tell anybody. being beaten by a woman. What kind of man am I? It's not just that. I loved her. I truly loved her. I would have done anything to make her happy. But obviously I didn't. Looking back now, I came up with some right stupid lies. I mean, there's only so many times you can walk into a door or fall down the stairs. The guys at work didn't think twice. After all, who hears of a man being beaten, being a victim of an abuse story? Even if I did mention something, I doubt anyone would have taken me seriously. Everybody loved Lucy. To them, she was such a gentle and kind person. And she was at first. That's the Lucy I fell in love with. Nobody saw her other side. It's taken me a long time to accept what's happening as fact, and that's it. Not just some fucked up drama you see on telly. To think back and talk about it now still hurts. It's all still quite new to me. Nobody could ever truly understand what it's like unless they go through it. I mean, I still get asked why I stayed with her. I don't know why. Maybe it was that heavy feeling of guilt that constantly shadowed my mind. I mean, I don't hate her. To me, we were both the victims in this. There was a time that I did try to leave her. This was when things were at their worst. She was depressed, I mean, really, really low. I'd met with her and instantly I could feel sadness creating the atmosphere. Such a bizarre feeling. It was over the phone that I told her. I don't know why I didn't go around. I felt as though I could fully go through with it if I couldn't see her face. Anyway, my phone calls usually began with her name calling and blaming me for something that I haven't actually done. Of course, back in the day, I'd be preparing for a new way to apologize to her. Not this time. I could feel myself getting heated. It was as if all the tension that had been built up over so many months was out of my control and I was no longer able to hold back my thoughts. Those next few seconds of my life were the hardest yet most relieving. I'd done it. I told her I wasn't going to be part of her life anymore. She never replied. She hung up. It was 29 calls later that I finally got her to answer the phone. I told you I'd do it, she said, and my heart was racing. I knew what she was going to say, but I still replied, what? She'd overdosed on tablets and gulped down a whole bottle of vodka. How would I explain this to her family? Days later, she'd been admitted out of hospital. Nobody knew. I couldn't bring myself to tell anybody. After all, she had said herself it was me who caused this. That's why I couldn't leave her. I was in fear she'd top herself. In fact, I knew she would. There was no doubt about it. I was to blame for her misery. Therefore, I felt it was my job to help her, or at least try. The next 9 months of our relationship didn't get any easier. Little did I know, there had been the last 9 months. I was powerless. I had nothing in me to give anymore, and the love I felt for her slowly started to disappear. I could see I wasn't in the wrong, but I still felt trapped. I couldn't just leave her, not after what happened previously. She made me feel so worthless in my mind. Nobody else would want me but her. So I began to settle in my mind in that process of thinking, this is what my future held. December the 15th, 2009, that was the day I began my new life. I still don't think it's sunk in yet that Lucy and I are apart. After years of beatings and emotional abuse, it was an unexpected visit from my mother that caught her out. It wasn't the best of situations, as no mother wants to walk in on their son covered in blood. It was only a few moments beforehand that Lucy had held me down to the floor, coughed up her saliva onto my face, a well-known act of hers when she doesn't get her own way. She, who now I call my ex-girlfriend, was receiving help for manic depression, and still to this day, I've not faced up to my fears speaking out to her family. I guess there will become a day when, I can pull myself back together again. I'm not sure when, But I'm not going to hide behind my lies anymore. Look, I haven't told this story for sympathy or for a psychological analysis on why my lover of 5.5 years abused the man she said she loved. It's not often you hear domestic violence stories coming from men. I think it's about time that changed. Don't you?